Good morning, everybody. I am Manila Chan. That over there is Ted Rawl. You are tuned in to the Ted Manila Information Show, or TMI for short, where we bring you too much information about anything and everything. Everything goes here, including F-bombs. We are live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. So please be sure to like and follow this show. I can't pound this, underscore this, and pound it into your heads enough. Help us grow this little channel, please. If you'd like to see us turn this into a real job, please just like and share, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit that red button. We are trying to get to our monetization. We're getting close. We're inching there, but we need your help. So please do like and subscribe. Same for all our Rumblers. We appreciate you being there in the Rumble room. Good morning to everybody. So Ted, today, no guest today. Our main topic,
What?
I know there's a lot to get to.
How can we do it without? There's nothing to talk about.
There's nothing to talk about on day 2 of the Trump administration, but there's only like 800,000 executive orders that he signed yesterday, an avalanche of them, and sanctions that were lifted. I was waiting to see if we were mentioned in there, Ted. We're not yet.
No,
So-
I mean, well, Clovis has already got like 23 of them tied up. So
Yeah, but everybody likes Clovis, though.
tomorrow is National Vole Day, due to Vole Awareness Day,
I don't know where my head is going
and
with
flightless birds and small furry creatures.
Yeah, we're not mentioned in any of the slew of sanctions liftings.
Well, let's get the most important
limitations.
one out of the way. It is now the Gulf of America.
That is true. Florida designated it. They said it first. I don't know if you heard.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Although, do you notice Ron DeSantis was like exiled into the overflow room?
Oh, I did not see.
A bunch of Republican governors, they didn't quite make it into the main room.
Well, I mean, it was in the rotunda.
That's
not to be confused with the woman from your story.
That's right, not to be confused with her. And she's not, but like I guess Miss Tittywinks, Mrs. Bezos, they had to make room for her. So
needed a lot of room for those cans.
She had room for 2. She took the Dolly Parton memorial.
Ron, I hear, isn't that tall, so I thought he could maybe just like sit on her chest, nice and comfy.
Right. I felt like there's something I had to get off my chest. With a big, I wanted to have a big jug of coffee this morning to celebrate.
Oh boy, Mark Zuckerberg certainly did notice. There are memes floating around, Ted. If you didn't see them, and if you didn't see them, viewers, it's all out there on social media.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
After Ted and I were, talking with our buddy Peter Coffin a couple weeks ago about Zuck dedicating this weird green statue to his wife, he was caught on camera ogling the Bezos boobs.
He was clearly titillated by the whole inauguration, and
he had the best seat in the house, man.
He definitely had the best seat in the house. Yeah.
God,
no question.
Right. This is the kind of show that you are tuned into. So if you want more of that, stick around. We're live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Let's get into all the news so we can get to the actual main topics, because there are, Ted. There are so many points I want to get to. Executive orders, sanctions lifts, all of that.
Gulf of America, USA.
Gulf of America. Mount McKinley.
Right.
Whatever. I don't know. I think it's called Denali now, isn't it?
No, it was. Yeah, well, I guess it. I don't know if this will be. So it's interesting to me, right? The mountain is in the United States. It's in Alaska. It is formally named Denali now. It used to be Mount McKinley,
right?
And now it will be Mount McKinley again. I think this does actually change the name, like on maps and stuff. Whereas the Gulf of Mexico is not, it's international waters, right? It's not, there's no need, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's any like international like naming designation organization that determines, for example, the name of the Sargasso Sea or the name of the Indian Ocean or the name of the Gulf of Tonkin or anything like that. I think these are just like, it's in the water, right? It's just sort of like, it's just called what people call it.
Right. Well, so I don't know about the rest of the world, but the United States actually has a department for that. And I actually was learning about it, and I don't know why, because there's
Of course we do.
yeah, weirdo.
This
And
is not the Maps Agency,
have,
which is a whole different, like, that's one of
I
the.
have to. I
The
have it
Maps
somewhere.
Agency is not that. That is another secret, like the CIA, kind of part of the intelligence.
No,
community.
not that. It's an actual naming branch in our government. Like they actually do the naming of
so I guess within
U.S. territory.
So I guess within the government, right? Like it'll now the U.S. government, any authority says like, the EPA does a report on the Gulf of America. They have to refer to it as the Gulf of America. But it's not like it's going to make anyone else in the world call it that.
No. So, I mean, the same can be said for dead naming, somebody that transitioned from this name to that name. Like you and I might be okay with calling somebody their new name, right? I don't care.
Or like how streets get renamed. New York is one of the most notorious cities for street renaming. There's always... Like I live not far from Edgar Allan Poe Street, but no one calls it that. He used to live there. It's like there's, although I love Edgar Allan Poe. Cool
name.
But but it's like, I think it's, 84th Street or something like that. And then like most notoriously in New York City, 6th Avenue was renamed the Avenue of the Americas years ago.
Yes.
And that's the formal name, but New Yorkers don't call it that. New Yorkers still call it 6th Avenue. And if you call it the Avenue of the Americas, we know you're out of towner.
Yeah, I thought I remembered it because they're in my I don't know. I want to say I was 20 years old the first time I went to New York, and I don't think it was Avenue of the Americas back then, like in the year 2000 or 1999.
It was. That goes back. They did that in the 60s, and if you walk down there, they have like all these old like there's these round signs with the seals of a bunch of Latin American countries on the street poles, and they're old. They're really old. They're from like I would have been like 2 when those things went up.
For those who have not been to New York City, the streets, and I love this, the streets are gridded, so it's easy to know if you're on an avenue or.
It's hard to get lost here. Yeah,
it's hard to get lost, right? So I think maybe what I'm conflating that with is somebody local that told me this is 6th. So you're on 6th. And I was, okay, I know where I am. Okay, thank you. You know, because back then we didn't have iPhones.
Right. Right. No, I mean, it's so we had to actually stare and look for things and talk to people.
Look at paper maps and
ask them.
Go, excuse me, how do I get here?
I gotta say, I mean, I would pay, if Google Maps was like suddenly like, we need $50 a month, I'd be like, I'd have to. I mean, I'd have to pay. I mean, it's like I use it every day. It's absolutely essential.
In New York?
Well, yeah. I mean, it tells you like where's the nearest bank branch, where's the like where's the restaurant, what's the when's the next train, when's the next subway coming? Is this subway out of service or whatever?
No, I seldom use Google Maps. Once I learn how to get someplace, it's fine. That's all. Like 1 time, 2 times, I'm good. Anyway, let's hop to our headlines. And then get to the main topic, because we did go overtime yesterday. We're going to try to stay on schedule today.
Okay, let's do it. And first up in the news, Russian President Vladimir Putin held a video call with President Xi Jinping of China, in which he proposed further developing their strategic partnership. This, of course, happening just after Trump's inauguration. And just to be clear here, if you're just joining us, we are going to get into all the Trump news at the bottom of the hour, so just after the headlines, but we want to keep all that in a discrete location, like Dick Cheney's secret undisclosed location, except it's just disclosed. All right, anyway, China and Russia declared a no-limits partnership in February of 2022 when Putin visited Beijing days before the invasion of Ukraine. And in recent months, Putin has also described China as an ally. Speaking from his Ogarevo residence outside of Moscow, Putin waved at Xi and addressed the chairman as his dear friend, saying he wanted to outline new plans for the development of the Russian-Chinese Comprehensive Partnership and Strategic Cooperation. The two presidents share a broad worldview, which casts the West as decadent and in decline as China is challenging American supremacy in everything from quantum computing and synthetic biology to espionage and hard military power. We jointly advocate building a more just, multipolar world order, and we're working in the interests of ensuring indivisible security in the Eurasian space and in the world as a whole, Putin said. Putin said China was Russia's main trading partner, and the trade had risen to $245 billion as of last year, according to statistics from China. Russia is China's fifth biggest trading partner. China is the biggest consumer of Russian energy and the biggest single oil export market as well, Putin said, adding that the two countries would push ahead with cooperating on fast neutron reactors and reprocessing nuclear fuel. I just want to point out, Manila, that like whatever you think of Vladimir Putin, his politics, whatever, you got to say, I mean, it's kind of must be cool to have a president who's able to speak in a theoretical way. I'm not even kidding, at an intellectual level, the way that Putin can talk. We haven't had one like that, I would say, since Obama.
Sure.
And even he's not like a towering intellect. He's smart enough. You know what I mean? I always say
Obama he's just charismatic and a good orator.
I mean, he's all right. He's all right. You know, I mean, Jimmy Carter's probably the last truly intellectual president we've had. And even though people didn't think that because he was a Southerner, but he was a physicist. He was a brilliant guy.
Was he a physicist? I didn't know that.
And I think you can't really go back. I mean, I think you have to go back to someone like Johnson or JFK for someone who's really got that world as a chessboard kind of view, you know, I mean, as opposed to the doofuses who've been running our
well, look, you know, let's be honest, Ted, over the past 4 years, there is and Democrats, like, I know you don't want to admit this. I know you don't, because it's Trump and Orange Man bad. But you know, on some level, everybody across the country is a little bit relieved that we have a POTUS that was sworn in that can actually, like, formulate actual complete sentences. One, speak off the cuff, right? I'm not saying he's articulate. I'm not saying Trump is particularly articulate or some.
Right. Okay.
No.
The bar is very low these days.
The bar is very low, and you know what? The dude had a really long day yesterday. Is all I'll say, right? Like, I think that's fair to say. He had a really long day yesterday.
And he was up late.
And he was up late, and he was partying into the night. They had a gazillion things to do. So I'm on some level actually relieved that it's like, well, at least I know that this guy's not calling it quits at 4 p.m.
Now, I mean, you're not wrong about that. You know, I mean,
look, he's no Vladimir
I think it's a lot to say that
600 years of Russian history.
I got to tell you, though, I mean, Manila, you've got to know people like that. I have a lot of my friends who are completely checked out and really sad and like virtually suicidal about this whole thing, and they don't know how they're going to get through the next 4 years.
No,
it's not like everyone's happy about this. That's all I got to say. Yeah.
But I'm saying somewhere deep inside, even the Democrats that hate Trump, on some level, you've got to be relieved that it's like somebody that you can at least know is not getting weekend at Bernie'd.
No. I mean, that's true. I mean, although, you know, look, at 78, that could change in a moment.
That could happen at any moment.
It could change tomorrow. But right now, it seems to be like, okay for now. I mean, yeah, I'm going to write I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to write my column this week about the intentionality of this president. And that's a really important thing. I mean, I had complained vociferously about presidents like Obama, whose main goal just seemed to be I want to be elected president. And once they took the oath of office, they had accomplished what they set out to do. I think Hillary Clinton would have been such a president had she won. I think Kamala Harris would have been such a president had she won. But this is, I mean, Americans haven't seen this level of intentionality from a newly elected leader really since 1980, when Reagan came in. Bill Clinton didn't have like a sweeping agenda. And I got to say, I don't agree with much of what, I mean, there's many things I disagree with. There's some things I do agree with, like the J6 pardons, that might surprise people. But I think the intent, it is nice to see intentionality in a
Look,
newly elected president, because it's like,
these
like
two.
we all read about like FDR's first 100 days, and it's like, oh man, that must be great to have a president who had a whole bunch of shit he wanted to do, and like we haven't really seen that in a long time.
Yeah, these two, I was going to say on the screen, but they're not on the well, here they are. These two on the screen. I wonder what it's like living in either of those countries. Whatever you think of these men individually,
Someone
or
smart
these
is in
two,
charge. Yeah.
whatever you think
And
of
they've
their
got
politics as a
they've got
Westerner,
big ideas.
like throw that out the window. But if you are somebody living in those countries, regardless of what you feel their politics are, what their party is or is not, at the end of the day, these two men are, one, intentional, like you said, and clearly very intelligent
Yes,
people
that's true.
with not only a broad and sweeping worldview, a good grasp on the world, but they are
And
forward
history
looking.
and economics.
Forward looking. That's the
Right.
big thing. Each of these men
neither of them
know
is young.
hundreds of years of history. These two men combined, they probably know about 2,000 years of their own country's history. But the important part is they are
7.
forward looking, and they have goals for the long game. It's the long game. And here in the US, and I would say the West writ large, we have not had that kind of leadership. And I'm not a fan of Winston Churchill, but I think he had a similar outlook, that he was thinking 50, 60, 100 years into the future.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like, no.
Europe has, in World War II, Europe had some people like that. Charles de Gaulle, he had a long, sweeping historical view. After the war, Western Europe ended up with all of these, technocrats, people like Adenauer and Helmut Kohl, Georges Pompidou, Francois Mitterrand, people who just didn't have that, that big vision. I think that's part of why the reaction that we're seeing in the right, the rise of the right in Western Europe, people like Marine Le Pen, and so on. These are people like Fico, those people. They're people with a sweeping view. They're bringing back the big picture, and in a way, they're not just sort of they're not administrators. Just,
right.
The view of someone like a Hillary Clinton or a Kamala Harris was like, this thing we tinker it along, we keep the car running, but we don't.
Totally.
We're not trying to like build a new car or make the car go much faster or
reinvent
make it work.
The wheel.
Yeah, we're not. We're just sort of like keeping it going, and I think people don't like that. They really just don't like it. Unless they only like it if everything feels good. And when things don't feel good, they want changes.
Yes. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So moving along, this one's personal for me. Jules Feiffer, the Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist, playwright, screenwriter, and children's book author, who was one of the most humorously neurotic literary voices of his generation, died at his home in upstate New York on the 17th. He was 95 years old. The cause was congestive heart failure, said his wife, J.Z. Holden, whom she was his third wife. He only got married. He was, bear in mind, 95 years old. He got married the third time back in 2016, not that long ago.
Wow.
Pfeiffer's weekly comic strip, Pfeiffer, initially called Sick, 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 ran in the Village Voice between 1956 and 2000, was syndicated to more than 100 papers. In an era defined by the nuclear bomb, the Cold War, racial tensions, and the sexual revolution, Pfeiffer added his nerve-wracked perspective to an influential cultural stage occupied by such humorists as Woody Allen, Mort Saul, Lenny Bruce, and the team of Mike Nichols and Elaine May. And if you just hear those names and compare them to, say, the cast of SNL, you can see why things were funnier back then. Pfeiffer found his voice in comics that provided a sardonic and sarcastic takedown of authority and conventional wisdom. In addition, he told the LA Times, well, it's the LA Times, so he may not have said this. His work explored how people use language not to communicate and the use of power in relationships. Later comic strips, such as Gary Trudeau's Doonesbury, are indebted to Pfeiffer's brand of acerbic wit and literate satire. No other cartoon in strip format was dealing on a regular basis with themes as adult as sex, politics, and psychiatry, Trudeau once said. in one strip for Playboy in 1957, Pfeiffer was on retainer at Playboy. Pfeiffer's Superman was a neurotic, settling for an office job after the woman he saves questions. His compulsion to rescue and his exhibitionist tendencies. Pfeiffer's characters brimmed with self-pity and self-absorption. They were, in their creator's words, so busy explaining themselves that they never shut up. They were consummate New Yorkers. They were very Upper West Side, very Jewish, very neurotic and high-strung. And he was I've been inspired by Schultz and Mike Peters, but Pfeiffer was my biggest inspiration as a cartoonist. I mean, when I was a kid, I was poking around the books in the back of one of my classrooms in elementary school, and I came across one of his books that I guess the teacher had, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, you can do political cartoons that are not about the president or the vice president. They're about ordinary people and how they interact with politics. I was like, and also they're really wordy, which, most political cartoons are not. And I was just like, wow, that's like, I'm a better writer than I am an artist. That was true about Pfeiffer as well. And so he was like, he like opened a door that we were able to walk through. And we fell out, he and I. Unfortunately, I knew him really well. But unfortunately, he got really mad when my syndication launched. And a couple of papers, not a lot, decided to drop him and put me in instead. And he thought that I was like a scab. I mean, it had nothing to do with me. I didn't call the paper. The syndicate guy. And it's like, and if I had known they were going to drop him, I would have been like, I would have been like, don't do it. I don't need that paper. Right. But, it wasn't up. It was just business. It had nothing to do with me or anything. It's like, some sales guy goes out for drinks with the editor of the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. The next thing you know. So anyway, he got really mad about that. And then I wrote a very controversial piece about Art Spiegelman. And then Pfeiffer ended up siding with Spiegelman. And so that was like the beginning of the end. And then most notably, I ran into him. I was with another cartoonist. We were on a bus from the Hamptons to New York, and there was Pfeiffer. And we were all joking about how, like, if a terrorist blew up a bus, that would be like 30% of American political cartooning would be gone just like that. So, but anyway, that all said, I'm sorry that we fell out, but he was absolutely a genius. And I strongly recommend not only his cartoons, but also his autobiography, his memoir, is one of the best memoirs in any form written by anybody ever. It is fucking hilarious and brilliantly written and really brutally honest. My best part is when he masturbated to drywall. But
well, I'm going to leave that to be your last word about him, because I'm somewhat familiar with his name, and you'd have to point it out to me that once I read his obit, I went, oh, Ted must know him.
Well,
and
by
sure
the way,
enough,
it's funny because a colleague and friend of mine, Tim Campbell, another political cartoonist, he had remarked, when that these things come in threes, like bad news, like typically like celebrity obits and stuff. And so we had Ann Telnis, who left the Washington Post. And then
but that's not an obit, though.
But it's kind of like bad news in the world of cartooning. And then Darren Bell, got arrested for child pornography.
AI child porn.
Some of it was, some of it was the old kind. And Tim had remarked like, oh, these things always come in threes. I wonder what it'll be. Hope not. And I think this is it. This is definitely it.
95 years. It sounds like it was a life well lived.
He was also a brilliant playwright. He wrote film. He wrote for film. He wrote for TV.
I love the arts, which is why I was notified of his death. So because whether or not I love the arts, it's because it's something I can't do. So it's it's those things that you admire because you don't have that talent. So I love watching this. Like
also, he had a very interesting. He had a unique drawing approach. What he did is he would that's not just the style. What I mean is what he would do is he would draw up all the panels. Like, let's say he wanted to do an 8-panel cartoon. He might draw like 20, and then he'd cut them up into pieces, and then he'd paste them and move them around and paste them down, and he would reorder them. It was very reminiscent. There's a English punk group called Wire very famous. They're still around. And they used to do that. They would write a song and then they'd cut the lyrics and then move them around and then compose the music for the randomly recreated lyrics. And it was kind of like Pfeiffer's method. So it led to like really interesting, his compositions were really kind of unique that way.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, it's sad, like you always tell us, that that field that you're in you guys are a dying breed. So
we're dead.
There goes.
I mean, like, let's put it this way. It's so bad now, for years we've been warning that we were dying. It's so bad now that if suddenly there were like 100 openings for political cartoonists, there'd be no one to fill them, because there's no young people who are, they hire 3 or something. I mean, there's just there's no one to do it. There's no one under 50 who can do this at all. Wow. And almost no one under 60, really. There's like 2 or 3. So, yeah, no one's 25 and doing this.
Rest in peace, Jules.
Yeah, all right, sorry, bye, Jules. But yeah, he did. It was a life well lived. The Department of Government Efficiency's first order of business was itself. First there were 2, then it was down to 1. Vivek Ramaswamy is no longer part of Doge. Officials confirmed yesterday that broke on my phone at 6:45. The inauguration was at noon, so he lasted 6 3/4 hours. So now Elon Musk is all solo to run the cost-cutting operation by his own self. Ramaswamy, who sought the GOP nomination for president back in last year, says he wants to run for governor of Ohio. I have thoughts about that. A native of Cincinnati, Ramaswamy, 39 years old, wanted J.D. Vance's old Senate seat before Governor Mike DeWine chose Lieutenant Governor John Husted instead. Vivek Ramaswamy played a critical role in helping us create Doge, Anna Kelly, spokesperson for the commission, said in a statement. He intends to run for elected office soon, which requires him to remain outside of Doge. Based on the structure that we announced today, we thank him immensely for his contributions over the past 2 months and expect him to play a vital role in making America great again. Thoughts, first of all, I wonder why he waited until after the inauguration and then didn't wait longer to bail on it.
Ted, easy.
And he hates Elon, and apparently he didn't get along with Musk.
Easy. He waited because he wanted some good tickets to the inauguration.
Yeah, he didn't want to end up in the overflow room with Ron DeSantis with the dogs.
That one's easy. It's not like he decided yesterday that he was going to leave and do this, right? Like,
no.
He's known, but he wanted to wait for the announcement because he needed to secure the tickets to the inauguration. So
he is not going. And I guess I don't know what kind of problems he had with Musk, but anyway, it's not hard to imagine. I gotta say that I will be shocked if he's successful securing the governorship in Ohio. I just don't see it at all.
I like Cincy. I had a good time in Cincinnati.
Oh, it's a great city.
I like it. I didn't know that was where he was from. I thought he was from somewhere else. And I don't know, but I like Cincy. Had a good time.
He is not Ohio. I have a better chance. I could go and challenge him. I would beat him. And I haven't lived in Ohio in years, but he just doesn't. It's not, part of it is his ethnicity, but I mean, a black person would have a better shot than an Indian person in Ohio. Ohio is like a very black city black state in the downtown areas in Dayton, Toledo, Akron, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and so on. But I just don't see it. He's so like on Ohio, he's billionaire. I mean, this is a place where rich people, they don't drive nice cars because it's like they don't want to be showy or flashy. He's showy and flashy. It's just not going to work. I don't see it at all. This opens up a spot for the Democrat who runs against him.
He left Ohio to go to college and never went back. Right, like that. Yeah, that was it. I think he went to Harvard undergrad and then grad school at Yale for law school, and then. But either way, he came to the East Coast and then became a biotech billionaire or whatever, right? With his mom being like a pharmacist or something. She's in the medical field also. I mean, he didn't come from a poor family to begin with.
No.
So, he can afford to run for governor, but But him leaving Doge, I would say, I mean, all jokes aside, that yeah, the first one to cut was 50% of the leadership at Doge.
Well, Doge is dead. I think it's kind of like, there's something different
I don't
about,
think
like,
so.
well, okay, it's wounded.
Elon will dig his
There's
heels
something
in.
about
He's
the
that
two,
kind of person.
but there's something different about, like, having, okay, you have this commission with these two dudes, and now it's
It was
just
too
one.
many chefs in
Now
the
it's all
kitchen.
personalized. It's just about Musk, whereas
It's too
it was
many chefs in the
diffused a little
kitchen.
bit with the two of them.
Yeah, well, I think it was just these two guys, because of their executive status in their personal lives, they were bound to not play well because they're the ones used to calling the shots in their own companies, right? They weren't. You can't have two executives co-piloting this new experiment, because again, it's just too many chefs in the kitchen. There could only be one. One needs to be the sous chef. There's just no other way.
That's true, and like, it's
coming.
funny because Vivek is Poe compared to Elon.
Oh,
also.
yes.
So he's like,
yes.
So I'm just
Vivek
gonna
is
say,
a popper.
So I think Vivek, you gotta, if you're hearing us here, you gotta, like, reconsider this and do something else, because if Clovis wants that job, he can beat Vivek. Because Clovis has more ties to Ohio than
that. Well, probably
he spent more time. Clovis has spent more time in Ohio than Vivek has.
Isn't Clovis one of the evacuees from the Haitian violence?
He's part of the diaspora. Yeah, of the feline.
It was Ohio, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Springfield.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. I mean, there's a Springfield in every state. So I wasn't sure.
That's why the Simpsons chose it. All right. We have some breaking news. Marco Rubio has officially been sworn in as Secretary of State. So that sound you hear of bombs falling, that's what happened there. The Senate voted unanimously to confirm 99-0.
You don't say.
Unanimously. I thought there were 100. Anyway.
Well, he's the 100.
Oh, right. Good point. Rubio is. Can he vote? Can't he vote for himself? Like, yo, I'm awesome.
I don't know.
All right. Well, so that's the first. That's the first to be sworn in.
JD Vance could vote for him, right? So, and he didn't. I don't know.
Is state the oldest? I think state is the oldest cabinet department, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he's, like, I guess, 5th or 6th in line.
I don't know, but nobody objected. Is the point?
Right.
Zero vote.
Everyone was into it.
Including Bernie.
I know, right. Assholes.
Including Liz Warren.
Assholes. They're all assholes. Liz, I know, it's wrong. Well, I don't know. I think maybe the idea, and I don't support this, is, well, the new candidate, the president has the right to his cabinet. He has the right, unless we have a major objection. I would have a major objection. Marco Rubio is a maniac. So, and his politics are really far right. So I would be like, no.
That's why I'm like, okay, you got Liz Warren and you got Bernie, neither of whom objected. There was no contrarian.
No. Well, there's no balls. Anyway, the start of Prince Harry's court battle against Rupert Murdoch's British newspaper group was delayed at the High Court in London for the two sides' lawyers to hold last-minute discussions, presumably for a possible settlement. Harry and former senior lawmaker Tom Watson are suing news group newspapers over alleged unlawful activities carried out by journalists and private investigators who worked for their papers, The Sun, which is a tabloid, and the defunct News of the World, between 1996 and 2011. At what was due to be the start of an 8-week trial, Harry and Watson's attorney, David Sherborne, requested that the judge, Timothy Fancourt, give them a little more time. The prince said his mission is not to get any cash, but to get to the truth, after other claimants settled cases to avoid the risk of a multi-million-pound legal bill that could be imposed, even if they won in court, but had rejected NGN's offer. Obviously, Prince Harry has the money to fight this. One of the main reasons for seeing this through is accountability, because I'm the last person that can actually achieve that. Harry, who is set to appear as a witness himself in February, said last month, good for him. I totally think that's awesome. Prince Harry claims that journalists and private investigators working for those tabloids unlawfully intercepted voicemail messages, among other methods of obtaining private information, just I got to say, what made me giggle about that was that a lot of the so-called hacking was they called apparently these reporters called up the phones and they had codes like 12345 and their passwords were like the word password and stuff like that.
So it really was it was hacking,
it was,
but
they did
like
hack
in the dumbest way.
It was really dumb. It's like remember when Leon Panetta left his phone somewhere, and that's one of the sources for Hillary Clinton's emails is that he left his phone like a derp at a bar or something.
Right, and it was like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Leon Panetta, who used to be a CIA director. Hello,
spy master. Mm.
And
what can you say to that? But that means Harry and the Royals all had like their computer password was password.
Yeah.
Or like
or maybe Diana.
Mum.
Or Mula.
Just something so stupid that like some random reporter at The Sun could figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was under the impression that like there was like cyber hacking involved. They got like black hats involved and that Rupert Murdoch paid all. So none of
no, not so much. I mean, even without opposable thumbs, Clovis could have gotten into those phones. Yeah.
Okay, in this case, now I'm kind of like, I wasn't rooting for Rupert. At this point, I kind of am.
I'm rooting for Harry. I think it's like
no, I'm kidding.
What they did was disgusting, and they tortured.
Not right.
They tortured these fucking people. You know, they really did.
It's not right. It is really not right. I agree because I have been. I don't know why, Ted, and I probably fucked this up in my own career because, like, I've told this story before. I don't know if I've said it publicly, but like in Trump's first term, I was at CPAC. I was at CPAC in 17. So it would have been February 2017. And I was in the green area getting coffee. And, that's supposed to be off the record. You can't, right? Like it's like what you see and hear there didn't happen, right? Because that's where the journalists go get coffee. That's where the guests go get coffee. And I'm around all kinds of people. And here comes the walrus, John Bolton himself. By himself. And we're standing.
Here comes the walrus. Here comes the eggplant.
That's right. The mustache. And I was like, oh, hello, Mr. Bolton.
JB.
Hello. We're stirring coffee next to each other. And
you're like, hey, so killed any brown people lately?
So I'm just kind of like, I want to say things, but I'm not because this is supposed to be that.
It ain't right.
Off, this is supposed to, it's ethically, this is not where we're supposed to do it.
It's off the record. Yeah, you're not mixing it up. Yeah.
Right. So I was just cordial. And then I hear one of his little staffers come running down the hallway. Mr. Bolton. And I turn around and I'm going, this sounds important. And I instinctively wanted to get my phone and I went,
missiles are flying. Alleluia, alleluia.
Nope. This is, I'm going, oh shit, like something's going to happen. I should get my phone. I decide against it. And this was the moment because Trump had just spoken at CPAC. And Bolton's making coffee next to stupid me and nobody else. No other reporter was there. It was just me and Bolton. Staffer comes and says, the president wants to talk to you. You got it. And in my head, I'm going, holy fuck, he's about to get the NSA job. I have the scoop. Fuck. Do I go on air and do I do this? Do I call Moscow now and say, like, oh my God, I got the scoop.
It could have just been like, you got that seat at the restaurant.
I know.
Yeah.
But he said, the president needs to talk to you now. So I went, it's the scoop. And I didn't do it. And I didn't do it because old school ethics, right? Like maybe a younger journalist might have done that, might have might have turned on their phone in the green room, right? But
that is a scoop.
Old school ethics, Ted. I went to,
I hear you. It's like the time I was on, and I do hate him and hope he dies covered with fire ants. Sean Hannity. I was on his show, and he and I was in the makeup room, and the lady who was making me up was, we would say, is an undocumented worker shall we say. And he came in and started talking to her about how they were going to pay her off the record, off the books in cash. And I remember, and I'm in the studio at Fox, right? Like on Avenue of the Americas, right? And so I'm like, again, ethics, right? I remember going home and telling my wife at the time, like, so Sean Hannity, big nativist nationalist, like he talks about all how the problems at the border. He fucking hires undocumented workers his own self at TV. I could fucking blow him up, and like, but then I was thinking, total hypocrite. And I was not at all worried about, like, you know, how I got the information because it was legit. But I was like, and you know, nobody told me to sign anything that said I couldn't talk about what I heard there. But the thing is, I decided not to say anything because this poor lady, you know, she has mouths to feed. She presumably had a family. I'm like, well, right. She didn't ask. It's not her fault. You know, she's doing her thing. I didn't want to fuck up her life. So I shut up. I shut up. But it always bugged me. You know, every time I see that like lunk on Fox, I'm always like, you fucking piece of shit.
Well, I mean, so you can imagine how I felt that I could have had easily. I mean, it wasn't until like 2 or 3 hours later that they negotiated Bolton's deal. I would have been like half a day ahead of all the other reporters had I just gone on air or recorded it or something. And who knows, maybe he wouldn't have been. He would have been the NSA that would have been. And he wouldn't have been actual.
You could have destroyed it.
I could have thwarted.
Well, that was, by the way, appointing that shitheel was one of Trump's made a lot of mistakes in his life, and that was one of the big ones of his first term.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So
all right, let's keep going. We're running slow here. It's my fault. Okay, the revamped White House Oval Office will once again feature the Diet Coke button that Trump used to use to summon sodas during his first term. The famous little red button, which I had never heard of, actually, not that famous.
Really?
Hidden inside
I thought it was a joke.
Was spotted on Trump's Resolute, like the red button that you get from Staples, the red the bang the
easy
button. Yeah. Was spotted on Trump's Resolute desk after his inaugural ceremony, according to the Wall Street Journal. The button was removed from the Oval Office in 2021 by Biden. When pressed, the button notifies White House butlers that a Diet Coke, Trump's favorite drink, is required in the Oval Office. Trump's new decor includes portraits of Ben Franklin and George Washington with, I guess Andrew Jackson's gone, with the painting of the nation's first president hanging over the fireplace, a portrait of Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary and the founder of the New York Post, as well as one of former President Thomas Jefferson, were also seen hanging in Trump's office. Trump, 78, also brought back a bust of Churchill, which he put on a table next to the fireplace during his first term, and kept a bust of MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., that both he and Biden displayed in the Oval Office. The gold curtains Trump picked out during his first term were also used by Biden, so those are still there. And finally, we probably all noticed this, our artist Frederick Remington's The Bronco Buster sculpture is also back in the room, sitting underneath that portrait. Oh, Jackson's still there, sitting under the portrait of Andy Jackson. So, yeah, that's that. Diet Coke is go.
Forget the nuclear button, man. It's the Diet Coke button. Like who? I had heard about this before. I never put too much thought into it, but it's real. We're looking at it and it's back. And I wonder if that little box is it like a remote button? Like you can carry it around the White House with you? Like I need a Coke.
Is it Bluetooth or is it like a wired button?
I don't,
like an old-fashioned wire.
He was able to move it, I think. I mean, you can't make holes in the Resolute desk, so.
What do you mean you can't make holes in it? Like it's impervious to drilling?
No, meaning it's like taboo. Like you cannot.
Really? I always assumed, even when I drew it, I always assumed that the phone wires went in through a hole.
No, look at the screen there. The phone.
So you're saying the phone wires like dangle off the side?
Yeah, it's coming off the side.
That's how Trump's going to die. He's going to trip over those cords.
So I guess I think the Diet Coke button is mobile. I think it's like a remote control. Like it goes with him in this little wooden box. And
I can't imagine. really, I mean, I guess I might have a coffee button, but I can't imagine having like a drink aside from coffee. I can't imagine having any
Diet
one
Coke
item
button.
I wanted to have over and over again.
I'm just gonna say, I feel like we're in 2025. They could just give him like one of those like life alert bracelets that he can just press the button for a Coke.
Help me, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Right, but forget, like, I need a Diet Coke and I need to get up. Like,
I remember during the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal, and it came out in the Star report that Bill like would get hungry at like 2 a.m. and couldn't get anything. And I remember thinking, you're the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, the commander-in-chief of the largest military in the world. You can't have a fucking chef sitting on his ass in the kitchen
24 hours a day, right?
Yeah, 24/7 in case you get hungry.
No. The from my understanding, and maybe this has changed, or maybe it's president to president, it was my understanding, at least in the Obama years, that the White House chef officially goes home after like dinner is served, minus barring special events, of course. Mm-hmm. But when they're just taking care of the family and the staff, it's they pretty much, after dinner is served, that's their schedule, and they're done and they go home. So more or less around 10 o'clock, they go home, they're done for the day. Like, that's it. And then apparently the entire kitchen is just dark the rest of the night. And it's not a house kitchen, right? It's like this professional giant restaurant size. Yeah, it's massive. Yeah,
it's like the kitchen in The Shining, right? Like that.
It's massive, and it's just
with vacant. The giant pots that like you could put a person in.
You could put a whole baby in there, right? Like 2 of them if you want, and like.
If that was John Bolton, that was what he liked to eat when he was.
That's what he liked to do. He's got
2 or 3 babies at once,
That's totally a thing, like Hansel and Gretel. But apparently, I think this is like normal, that the White House, part of their staffing is run like a business, right? And the staff. I think
it's weird. I mean, look, maybe you don't have to have like the chef. Drop shadow Gothic lettering chef, but maybe get a short order chef. Hey, get one of Hannity's undocumented workers to come in there. Have
Gordon Ramsay in there at midnight, right?
Like, but you could seriously get a guy from a diner, or a lady
that wants a side
or
gig,
a trans person, come in there and do some. It's just like, the president would like a hamburger. That's not really asking for a lot, really.
Well, I had heard that in the 90s, that's the midnight runs were not always to Monica Lewinsky, that it was to McDonald's sometimes, is what I heard.
Yeah, there's video of that, right? Like Bill was at Mickey D's. He snuck out in his orange jogging shorts.
I think that one was a famous one. Yeah, I think that was to get away from Hillary.
Oh God,
he's running.
By the way, did you notice they didn't hold hands when they walked in?
Ted, come on.
Wait, are you saying that you don't think they're like madly in love with each other?
I don't even know what to say about.
You're like, all right. So that's that. Jaws. Let's Jaws it up. We're already 20
that was
minutes over.
That was it.
We have a lot of Trump stuff to do. Then we're gonna.
Jeez, we got Trumping to do.
All right, Jaws, while getting rid of the banner at the same time. I know that's not an easy move. Good job.
That's tough.
All right, so I'll intro our topic and then we'll get into it. So after a strange inauguration speech that we covered here in real time, but that wasn't really an inauguration speech, President Donald Trump charged out of the gate on his first date with a blizzard of executive orders and actions designed to remake the government as quickly as possible in his own image. Within hours, he pardoned or commuted the sentences of the January 6th defendants and inmates, declared an emergency at the Mexican border that allows him to send in the military, shut down the main immigration app, declared drug cartels to be terrorist organizations, fired over 1,000 Biden appointees, threw a lifeline to TikTok, redeclared Cuba a partner of terrorists, withdrew from the Paris Climate Accord and the World Health Organization, and attempted to end birthright citizenship. Let me start with the first two. First of all, the birthright citizenship is ridiculous because that's in the Constitution from 1787. That's not going anywhere. All this is going to do is tie people up in court as they sue successfully, and the government's going to have to unsuccessfully defend these lawsuits and pay and waste taxpayer money. That's really irresponsible. And the World Health Organization thing is breathtakingly stupid, because these are the people who like figure out, hey, there's something going on in Wuhan and people are getting sick over there. Maybe we got to like look at that. And if you don't subscribe to the WHO like newsletter, your country doesn't get that info. You're like literally like you're off the grid,
newsletter.
And then suddenly your people are croaking in LA and you don't know why. I mean, those are the two really dumb moves.
The two. Okay, so I'm no constitutional expert. Obviously, I did ask Grok about this birthright citizenship thing, and I do know a thing or two based on the case with Wong Kim Ark from the 1800s, that just before the turn of the century to the 1900s, American-born Chinese person, San Francisco. It's a California case, so we're all kind of taught about that in California, right? But here's what Grok has to say about birthright citizenship. And of course, Grok is, if you don't know, is like the Chat GPT that Elon Musk has on X, on Twitter. And personally, I think, believe it or not, I think Grok is the most fair of all the AIs that I've experimented with. Okay. And Grok says the United States Constitution addresses birthright citizenship primarily through the 14th Amendment,
correct,
which was ratified in 1868. It states Section 1 includes the citizenship clause, which says, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States, of the state wherein they reside. And this clause has been interpreted by the Supreme Court to grant citizenship to nearly all individuals born within the geographical limits of the United States, provided they are subject to its jurisdiction. The key phrase is, quote, subject to the jurisdiction thereof has been central to the legal interpretations. And they cite the case I was talking about, the Wong Kim Ark Supreme Court case there, United States versus Wong Kim Ark, established that children born in the U.S. to parents who are not U.S. citizens but are legally in the country, like those with permanent residency, are indeed U.S. citizens by birth. This interpretation largely settled the matter concerning birthright citizenship for those born on U.S. soil, with some exceptions. Exceptions include like kids of foreign diplomats, right? They're not subject to U.S. jurisdiction, and historically, Native Americans not considered subject to U.S. jurisdiction until those laws changed in the 20th century. So, there's this debate around that one phrase, Ted, and obviously Trump is doing this. I don't know. I don't
think there's much debate about that.
It's going to go to the Supreme Court again because the interpretation is in question. There is the part that says,
yeah, but you're subject I mean, clearly, if you're, let's say, a traditional anchor baby, right? Like your parents fly in from Mexico, overstay their visa, and your mom's pregnant when they're here. She drops you, at a hospital in Wichita. You're American because you are. You are subject to the jurisdiction of the laws of the United States of America.
Right. The baby is.
The baby
That's
is.
the argument.
That's right. The parents are not. The parents might become, but they're not automatic. But clearly, I mean, anything that lives and breathes and walks inside the territory of the United States is, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. I mean, I would argue that that's even true. Let's say there was a female Guantanamo inmate who delivered a baby at Guantanamo Torture Center.
Oh, God.
I think that baby would be an American citizen.
Right, because it's like a little colony of Cuba that we took. Yeah.
Or if let's say you delivered a baby on the grounds of a U.S. embassy somewhere. I think you would
Right.
also be
Your
subject to
U.S.
that.
jurisdiction. So to me, this I can see both sides where the argument says, at this point, like, it's not going to be me. I'm not the right legal mind, like the justices on SCOTUS to figure this out. But I get the argument of saying, well, your parents are here legally, thus you're born. So like Vivek Ramaswamy or me, the child of legal immigrants, right? No one's going to debate
Or me.
that I'm American or your
Or
mom,
me.
right? Your mom being a French woman, like
I'm going to go
out.
further. So, I think, and people are not going to like this, but I think, first of all, I'm just going to say lack of birthright citizenship, countries that don't have it have a lot of problems. And you end up you end up with second, third generation people like France who are not part of the system. They're alienated. They have to work off the books, live in the shadows. If they see something, they don't say something. If they see a ISIS terrorist, they don't call the police because they're afraid of being deported or arrested or whatever. Right. So the and these are people who can't go back home because they're not even from anywhere. They're from there.
There are people in France that are like these young, I think you and I on the old radio show covered a case of a young guy that's like, like a 22-year-old kid or something that was shot and killed and by police trying to get away from a traffic stop. And he's some kind of Arab. I forget what, but he was some kind of Arab. And it was like his grandparents were the illegal migrants.
Algerian, I'm pretty sure.
Algeria, that was it. That his grandparents were the illegal migrants there. Therefore, his parents were born there, but still considered illegal. And now he's born there and he's considered illegal. Yeah. And it's, by law, by French law, the police killed an illegal migrant.
Right, that's correct, and it's ridiculous. I mean, Obama did a lot of. He was the deporter in chief. People forget that.
Yes,
and he deported a bunch of people back to Cambodia who had come here when they were like 2. They were luggage. Okay, they weren't migrants, and they went with their parents. Anyway, they were deported back to Cambodia, to this desperately poor country that didn't even have any programs to be able to handle them. They didn't speak Khmer at all, right?
No.
They couldn't speak the language. They didn't even, they were lost. It would be like dropping me in Cambodia. They just didn't know what the fuck to do.
It was like, those people escaped the parents because those kids are people my age.
It's unconscionable.
They're my age. They're the last of the Gen X. They're literally my contemporaries. I would have gone to school with them,
Yeah,
their parents escaped Pol Pot. Like,
I'm
literally,
go further.
That's what happened.
We have plenty of room. I'd say, like, if you have an anchor baby, you have anchor parents too. The two, if you give birth to a child in the United States, if you were born in the United States, both of your parents should automatically be entitled, I'm going to say, at least a permanent residency. Because, I don't want the kid to be a citizen and then the parents are not and get deported. Like, I don't want that. That's not good for society. I want them to take care of their kid. And you could say, okay, well, that's going to encourage this kind of behavior. Okay. There's lots of, like you can't shoot shoplifters either.
We have a declining birth rate.
If you could shoot,
as long as they're born here. Exactly.
If you could shoot shoplifters, it would probably stop shoplifting, but we don't allow that, right? So
I already know. Yeah. I already know that producer Robbie is his hair is on fire.
Chomping at the bit.
He's ready to murder us right now.
Well, but we have to keep going here. If Robbie wants to pipe in for like a minute, and we can move on to the next topic.
I don't think he's available to pop in.
Never mind.
But I know because I know him. He's not poppable.
Oh, I'm poppable.
We have to talk. Oh no, there he is.
I'm 100% poppable.
Hold on. Okay.
Pop quickly because we have to move on.
One second, producer Robbie.
Not a problem. Let me know when.
Go for it.
All right. So here's the thing. When it comes to anchor babies, if we secure the border, the ones already here, my policy, go ahead and stay. No problem. No.
For the anchor baby?
Yeah, 100%. For those who are here right the hell now. If y'all give me that starting freaking tomorrow, I deport every freaking carbon-based life form of you. Mama, baby, cousin, great, you're gone.
What if the dog wandered across the Tijuana border?
What about the cat? The cat is always innocent by definition.
Hey, listen, I have no problem with dogs and cats. Y'all know I have a personal animus right now with my landlord because that old biddy won't let me have another dog after my dog died. Dogs are welcome. Y'all come on here to Montana. Love to have you. But no, just close the border. Secure the freaking border. And birthright citizenship.
Just turn off the tap.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like you're
Right
getting your
now.
way. That was another one of Trump's executive orders.
Yep.
He ordered the border shut down. He shut down the immigration app. It stopped working. People
Good.
who were waiting in Mexico, who were following the rules, I should say, and have been waiting, they had appointments. They've just been canceled. They were crying on
The
television.
new rules that were made by
Their
Biden,
tears are
which
delicious, by the way,
are then
Ted.
worse.
I loved it. Now I'll say this real quick because I know
That's
y'all
mean.
I know y'all in a hurry. Don't care. The Indian nations, if you look at a map of the 1800s, were under the jurisdiction of the United States. Indians were not citizens. The 16th Amendment had nothing to do with immigration. It's all about freed slaves. Historical context matters. Historical context matters.
Does matter.
100%.
But they did write but I've read the debate. If you read the debate in Congress at that time, they definitely considered all these possibilities, and they
Very much so.
And they knew that, and they voted for it, even though they knew anchor babies could result from it.
Well, back then, no airplanes and things. So, I mean, it was harder to get here.
Mhm.
And just one last thing. Again, context matters. If some lady from the Oglala Nation popped a squat, dropped a brand new baby, that baby was not an American, even though Dakota Territory and Montana Territory were under the jurisdiction of the United States. That's all I got to say about it. Y'all continue with the show.
Okay, go.
By the way, speaking of Oglala Nation, Peltier was finally freed. Leonard Peltier was freed yesterday as one of Joe Biden's last executive orders or pardons, rather.
Well, I approve of that message.
I approve of that one. He's 80 years old. This whole thing
Liberal tears
happened at the Oglala Nation. I believe Leonard Peltier is of the Chippewa tribe. One of my close friends back home is a Chippewa tribe member. And most of these people shouldn't even say Peltier. His name is Leonard Peltier because many of them have French names, French last names. But yeah, and this happened on Oglala Nation territory. And I think it's one of those few good things.
Well, he probably he didn't receive a fair trial, right? So I mean,
of course not.
That's the main point.
Yeah,
right. That's the main point. But that was the message. I think.
And I'm going to say this real quick, and then I'll go away. If we stop aborting babies, if we stop killing the future generation, and stop sterilizing kids, guess what happens? The birth rate fixes itself. Y'all have fun.
we will. We always do. Thank you as
Thanks,
always,
Robbie.
100%.
All right. So then. We talked about the border. The border's been shut down.
J6.
Although the border was already kind of shut down anyway, right? I mean, Biden had when he was trying to get reelected last summer, before he crapped out. The open border got returned to the way it had been when he took over.
Returned-ish, but then
if you look at the chart of border crossings, it's plummeted dramatically.
No, but that's like saying the math of I don't know what a good example would be, but you can manipulate math based on your data sets and to make it appear any way you want, right? And so the math, like the BLS data, like the Bureau of Labor Statistics and our jobs, and that's all bullshit. The border is still,
but they haven't changed the way that they calculate that.
No. No, it is, because now you're no longer illegal if all you do is go on the app. So by definition,
but the number of encounters is lower. They have trickled, and they've reduced the number of people who are allowed to come.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
It's true.
Like,
it is true.
Because of the way they're counting and how many border patrol were there. There's ways around how you report those numbers.
But it is a fact, though, that Biden was worried about the border. He knew that Trump had made it a major issue, and therefore he shut down the whoever was really running, Tony Blinken or whatever, who's really the president. They reduced the number of people allowed to cross for appointments to apply for asylum.
They kind of
dramatically
had some wait in Mexico, and it was like a mishmash of shit that didn't work, and that app. What was it called? Something one, like US one, or something. I forget. Something one.
BPD, BVD, or something.
I feel like I don't know, STD one or something.
Something.
I don't know. But the app itself went dead like 20 minutes into Trump's inauguration. Which, by the way, he didn't put his hand on the Bible. I don't think that matters. But nobody corrected him.
There was concern about fire.
Well, possibly, but
it might catch fire.
Chief Justice Roberts didn't correct him, and Melania didn't correct him. She just stood there holding the two books, like,
hiding under her terrifying hat.
I love the hat.
But
anyway,
by the way, she couldn't see, right? I mean, it was literally covering her eyes.
She doesn't need to see. She's the first lady.
Maybe as an alien, she doesn't really see through her eyes.
She looked down her nose at everybody, but she's also very, very tall, like very, very tall.
And very strange.
Yes, but she's very tall, so she didn't have to look forward to see people and make sure she didn't trample anyone. She just looked down because the hat, whatever. But that's fine. I think she looked great. She held the Bible beautifully, and Trump did not put his hand on it
because the Bible might burst into flames.
Maybe it's possible. But there's so many more executive orders, and like I alluded to at the top of the show, Ted, we were not on that. There was nothing saying that sanctions.
We got to talk about. Come on. I got to get your thoughts about the World Health Organization. Come on, you got to admit that's a mistake. You got to. I
do think mostly it's a mistake, but I also have my criticisms of the WHO with their stupid idea that they threw out. They covertly were working on during the tail end of COVID about basically saying, hey, we're going to get all of our members to sign this little piece of this document that says we're in charge. Once we declare a state of emergency, the WHO, Dr. Tedros, is in charge of your country, America, your country, Australia, your country, China, your country, France, your country, Germany. I'm in charge, Dr. Tedros. It was like this whole declaration that they wanted people to sign. So I kind of get why he'd be like,
name has the word, the syllable Ted in them. Generally, I found them to be extremely trustworthy and competent.
So this Tedros, because no one can say his last name, like Gabarius.
It's not Tedros Boutros Ghali.
Ghali. Yes. So everyone says Dr. Tedros, right? Because literally everybody bungles his name. So everyone just says Dr. Tedros, the chief of the WHO.
I take your point about him. But still, they shouldn't have done that.
There's a little vitriol
but dropping
there.
out of the WHO is a mistake. I mean, because seriously, that's the organization. It notifies, it collects information from its members and shares all the information that it gets with its members. And like, for example, even though they got criticized, China we found out about COVID and the Wuhan origin of it because China did share with the WHO that information. It's how it took a while for us to figure out the true origins.
I just want to say,
but still,
when that was happening before the WHO, me at the time still hosting In Question on RT America, and one of my producers, who's also Asian, we got to talking because we have friends and family out there, right? Not necessarily in Wuhan, but in China, in East Asia. And we were talking about this weird virus that everyone's talking about over there. And then we tried to notify our employers, and nobody, they were like, I was like, hey, this is going to be a big news story. Nobody believed me at the time. I was like, something weird is happening over there in China. There's like, I have friends and family telling me blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I was ahead. Me and my producer were way ahead of the WHO because they were hesitant to spread the word, Ted. So there's a lot of complaints about the WHO, and I'm not comparing it to how soon me and my producer knew. I'm just saying, writ large, because of the amount of money that the US and China donate to the WHO, there was hesitation on the WHO's part in disseminating the word more quickly. So I get why, Trump would, I would say, use this as a finagle tactic. If you read The Art of the Deal, this is kind of like a car deal, right? Like the dealership says, sticker price plus $5,000. And you're like, no, dude, $15,000 below sticker price. And somewhere you meet in the middle. I get it. Dr. Tedros was trying to be like, hey, I'm going to be in charge of your country's pandemic solution, the next pandemic, as the WEF and Klaus Schwab talks about pandemic preparation for 2030. So I get it. I'm kind of a little bit in favor to use this as a strong arm tactic. Maybe not in the long run, because it's not an exclusive club, Ted. As long as you pay your dues, you can get in. This is fine. It's not like trying to get into Harvard or something.
Right
you just
now,
pay your dues and get in.
Right now, we're not getting it. You know?
No, it's fine. It's fine. They're going to come asking Trump, like, how do we get you back? And that's what they're going to do. And, so for right now, as long as he uses it to leverage, I can get behind jumping out of the WHO. Paris Climate Accord, there are things that should be hammered out, like all the fakery in recycling scams. So I get that too, if it's used as a strong arm tactic.
Well, it's not. I think the WHO thing might be a strong arm tactic. It smells like it might be, because even Donald Trump doesn't. I mean, he's a germaphobe, so he's got to be worried about bugs. And he got COVID, and kicked his ass, right? So he probably cares about this stuff. I think the Paris Climate Accord, he dropped out of it last time. Don't forget, and there was no negotiations. He wasn't interested. He doesn't. He's like, drill baby drill. Fuck the environment. I'll be dead in 2 years anyway.
Do you think he recycles all those Coke cans that he drinks every day?
No, I think he throws them out onto the White House
lawn. Because aluminum, aluminum is actually recyclable, and glass is actually recyclable. Everything else, not so much. Though I think the plastic 2 liters can be recycled, but outside of that, that's really. So, Mr. President, recycle your Diet Coke cans. I want to get to J6 before we say goodbye, because I think this is a big deal.
Definitely, please.
Big deal. So the J6.
By the way, the reporting has been a little bit unclear. Just to be before you do your comment, people the reporting's been saying, he pardoned almost all of them, and the implication was that some of them had not gotten a pardon, that he made some exceptions. There was a carve out. That's not true. He commuted some of their sentences.
Right, that's what it is. Some got full pardons,
but everybody's off the hook. No one's going to be.
Everybody's off the hook.
No one's in prison as of today.
Right,
they're all gone.
And this is the first. I shouldn't call it a rift, because it's not a rift. This is the first already where we see the difference in opinion on this subject matter from then Senator J.D. Vance, and now Vice President Vance, with Donald Trump. And I'm siding with J.D. Vance on this one. Trump took everybody off the hook. Everybody is out of the clink. Everybody's court cases are, if it's in limbo, it's now out of limbo. Everybody, J6, whether you have been convicted or not, you're off the hook. Your record is clean, except for those that were, in the clink. You've been commuted, not full pardon, so your record isn't totally clean. But what J.D. Vance said was that he believed the people that were convicted of violent offenses should remain behind bars. And I agree with that. If you were the dude taking a shit on Nancy Pelosi's desk, okay, whatever.
Was it a watery shit, or was it
I don't know.
Fully contained, like big brown bomb?
A dump? I don't know. I don't want to know the details of that. But, I think that what kind of criminality is that? Is that a felony, Ted, to
defecatory desecration on the Speaker of the House's desk?
No, it doesn't matter. It's in a public space.
Oh, well, that would be, for sure, it's like vandalism, right? I mean, it's...
Okay, so whatever you're charged, if it's vandalism, then you serve your time or pay your penalty for vandalism, let's call it, because I don't know. Or the thousands of people that were literally walking around, like taking pictures, just meandering, those people were put in jail too, because it was like they got when you go to McDonald's, you get upsized, like for 39 cents more, would you like to go extra bucket large?
Yes.
So that's what, the U.S. attorneys did here. It was like, you might have been meandering around inside because they opened the Capitol Police opened the door for you, but you got extra upcharged because it was like, now you're blocking the Senate confirmation, and proceedings, or whatever the actual statutory language is. But you got upcharged, and now you're serving 6 years for meandering around the Capitol, inside the building, inside the rotunda. So for those people, I think that's fair that they're off the hook. But I'm with J.D. Vance. If you were a criminal offender, you were violent, you hit a cop, you hit anybody, you should be behind bars based on the actions you took that day. But Trump went and released them all at like I think that was a little bit too much. There were, dozens of people who were definitely violent, but none more violent than the Capitol policeman that shot and killed Ashley Babbitt, who was smaller than me. That was the most violent thing that happened there. It was the only murder that happened on January 6th.
There is the cop, the Capitol Hill cop, who had a heart attack and the next day.
Brian Sicknick. That was the next day.
And it's not outside of the realm of reason to stipulate that perhaps he was stressed out by what had happened, and that's what killed him.
Perhaps that's possible, but that's all conjecture, and like we don't know. I heard that I seem to recall that he was like on various medications anyway for like previous traumas. I think he might have been a veteran or something. I seem to remember something about his case that said he had certain pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, but that's not a defense. That's not a defense at all. Like if I mug an old lady who's like 90 years old in the street,
she has a heart attack,
and dies, I'm going to jail for at least second-degree murder.
But how do you? The thing is, it's
like, oh well, she was a weakling.
Well, the argument is, can you prove that the events the day before led? He had 2 strokes, and that's how he died.
I think it would be. Look, it's like here's the thing. Do I think that's probably what happened? Yes. Do I think it's beyond a reasonable doubt? No.
No. And based on our legal system, that's what we're working on.
And by the way, this is an example of the wisdom of that standard, I think. I don't think it's certain enough. I wouldn't want to put someone in prison over something that's like, well, probably. Probably is not good enough.
But also, if you're the guy that sprayed Officer Sicknick with bear spray,
well, that's assault.
That's assault. You should still be behind bars, and I don't think Trump should have let that guy out. Or the guy that tasered, I forget the Capitol policeman's name that had the long beard, and he went to testify in front of Liz Cheney, ABC special.
He could be in a CZ Top cover band after this is
that
all
guy.
over,
Yeah,
so.
He was very stylish with the full sleeve tattoos and you know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
That guy, he got tased. Tasered is the actual word, but he got tased, and whoever tasered him,
that's also very serious.
I think that's also very serious too. So I disagree with Trump's move to wipe the slate clean for all those people. Some of those people should be behind bars because they were violent. But if you're, you get a misdemeanor fine for pooping on Pelosi's desk.
Democratically aligned media editorial pages at places like the Washington Post are going crazy this morning about these J6 pardons, and they're saying that it's a horrible betrayal. And I think they're failing to acknowledge the prosecutorial overreach that really targeted these people, and that was kind of ridiculous. I remember biking on the Hudson River on one beautiful day, and one of those giant, electronic billboards that changes every few seconds came on with wanted images of people who were wanted, for breaking into the Capitol on January 6th. If you've seen this person.
Oh, you guys did that?
Give me a fucking break. They didn't do that they don't do that here in New York when you have, they didn't do that for Luigi Mangione. It's absurd. And it's like, I think this was it's a reaction, and it's America. So most reactions tend to be overreactions. And that's kind of what happened here. I do think probably of the 1,500 and change of people who got off the hook here, probably there's 40 that needed to sort of be where they were. Or maybe, but it's also true that the bear spray guy, I don't know if he's been in the clink for 3 fucking years. Enough is enough. Let him go.
That's a while. So, but there are people that were more violent, obviously taking swings,
But it's now been a number of years, you know.
Well, if they've been behind bars that long, sure.
And there's crazy things like the Enrique Tarrio. What was it, 22 years or 17 years?
22 years. And dude was clearly...
He wasn't even there. He wasn't even there.
And he's an FBI informant. He's a confidential informant. He is a CI. It was outed that the dude was a CI and had been, even though he was like the boss of the Proud Boys, he's been a confidential informant in his past. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he was at that moment, but once they say once you've been a CI, always a CI.
Right.
So I don't know. There's no evidence for me to have seen that he was at that day a confidential informant, but he has admitted to a history of being a confidential informant. Mm-hmm, so we know that like they threw him under the bus. He was too dumb to secure a deal.
Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine like the police and the government making a deal with you and then like not honoring that
and
deal
reneging
or watching or looking out for you? Whoever heard of such a thing? That our
the U.S. government changing their
government who's always there for you when you need them. Yeah.
So stuff, people like him, like he wasn't even there. Or Stuart Rhodes, the guy with the eye patch,
mm-hmm.
that I forget, Oath Keepers, I think is what he is.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
He didn't even have any guns on his person. All the guns were here in Virginia.
They treated these guys, they treated them like they were like domestic terrorists. And in fact, that's what they talked to them about. And it's like,
yes.
Look, let's be clear. It was an ugly day in American history, but
sure,
they've exaggerated.
They upsized it.
They upsized it. Exactly. It's like, I always say that, like, don't lay it on so fucking thick. Just leave it. It's like with Trump where Trump is a turd. You don't need to lie about him. It's like, right. He's corrupt. He's like racist. He's like, just say the stuff that's true. The emoluments.
He's a crotchety old man.
Nail him on emoluments. He literally is grifting at like the taxpayer till. So stick to that. Don't make up shit about how he wants to be Hitler and all that. Like,
right.
Don't do that. That's just not true. You have no evidence to support it. Cut the shit.
It's too much. It's over the top what they do to Trump and also what they do to, what they did to some of these people are not like, sure, we're talking about Enrique Tarrio and we're talking about Stuart Rhodes who like they wear paramilitary shit. They're not sympathetic characters is my point, right?
Mm-hmm,
These guys are not sympathetic characters, but I can tell you, I actually know some very standardy Republicans like your bestie, like Scott Stantis, that look like that are mild-mannered and fun and nice and smart people that are your neighbors, that are your friends, the 60-year-old dude you'd bump into at the bar and you start, say, oh, sorry, and then you strike up a conversation. People like that, I know, were terrified because they were on the Capitol grounds when it happened. Mm-hmm. They may not have been involved in riots and stuff, but they were terrified. These people should not have lived the past 4 years in sheer terror because they knew the Biden government was gunning for every single person based on cell phone tracking data, that you might have been that 60-year-old man that was just there, but not pushing on cops, not, you're just on the grounds, but that your data would show that you were there. You should not have lived your life the last 4 years in complete terror that your life will be upended and the full weight of the U.S. government is going to come down, break the bank. You're 60 years old. And these are a number of people in their 50s and 60s that I know that you are going to get broken by the system, because that's
I agree
what
with
do.
you. Look, it's all part of over-sentencing, and this is not really a satisfactory solution. It doesn't address the issue. So if the election had gone the other way, they'd still be behind bars. Nothing would have changed. Justice shouldn't be politicized. And as a society, we should, I've been ranting about this for years. It's not just these people. It's mostly, people of color, but it's everybody. Everyone's over-sentenced and everyone's overcharged in this country. They lard on the charges. The only thing I find very important and useful about like the law, the coverage of the lawfare and the January 6th stuff is, I would hope that it would draw attention on the part of like law and order conservative Republicans to be like, look at like what overcharging looks like and feels like when the government goes crazy over something that's, they take the crime that you committed and then they exaggerate it out into something ridiculous. That's they're doing that. That's normal. That's why 99% of people, of defendants in federal cases, cop a plea, because they know they can't prevail, and they're so overcharged, and so they don't get their day in court as American citizens, right?
Right.
I really hope that Republicans start to see that, like, this is a mistake, and that we need to start having like a Scandinavian style, reform-based judicial system that tries to reintegrate people back into society as quickly and effectively as possible, rather than just feed the prison industrial complex, which is really, it's a for-profit system, which is why the over-sentencing thing, right? Like, it's to the advantage of the prison industrial complex to have these long sentences, because, as a client, you're making them money, and you provide them with slave labor, and they get more money from the taxpayers.
Firefighters, you get to use them as firefighters if you're in California. We have a great program for that. So I can tell you all about it, because one of my stepbrothers is a California fireman, and he's told me that those guys do play a crucial role, but that shouldn't be the case. One, we should allocate enough money to have firefighters. Different conversation. Firefighters that we pay, Ted.
Yes.
And two, we should not use inmates to exploit them to get brownie points so they can get out a little early.
No, it's disgusting.
Have them risk their lives. It's not right. But anyway, that's a different conversation. We're out of time. Touch on a couple of things, Ted. Mass firings. Cuba was off the terror list for like 72 hours?
Indicating that Biden wasn't very serious about that.
No!
Although there's no evidence that Cuba's ever actually done anything wrong in this respect.
No.
So.
Point is, they're back on the shit list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So damn. TikTok's bought a little bit. They've got 70-ish more days, I think. Cartels are terrorists, which
is not true.
It's not true by the usual definition, but I could see how one
indulging in mass violence does not make you a terrorist organization,
right? Because they don't have a political, like, what is their political position?
They don't have a political orientation. No, it's like, this is it's a mafia organization, right? It's like, if they kill people, it's because they're rivals, or they've broken rules or something like that.
Right. So I don't know, by the technical definition of terrorist organization, I don't know that they really actually count, but I know by doing so.
But that one will stick. That one will stick. The president has this kind of, I mean, the
because that empowers the president.
Not to mention, the cartels aren't going to sue in U.S. courts.
They might. You never know. They got money for lawyers. So
that's true.
Yeah. It's not like people don't know who the Sinaloa cartel is. Like, they actually have a name. Like, the people know.
Bob Sinaloa.
It's very, very possible. All right, so we'll leave it there, because there's too damn much. And love this guy, love Orange Man or hate him. You have to admit, dude is way more vibrant than the guy that we had the last 4 years. And I'll tell you, Ted, I could not have done the day yesterday. What this dude did all day, I don't have it in me.
With coffee, all things are possible.
No, Diet Coke, apparently. There's the button. There's the Diet Coke button. See, it is mobile. It is mobile. Okay, there you go. I guess, I don't know, if you run on Diet Coke, I don't drink.
One of the Rumblers did bring up a good point. Why not just have a mini fridge and just stock that fucker?
I don't
Doge.
know.
First, this is the first move of Doge.
Get rid of the
mini fridge.
Get mini fridge, and therefore get rid of the Diet Coke butler.
Yeah, no Diet Coke butler. Yeah,
because that's like his sole job.
Is that his sole job?
I don't know.
Sitting on top of a case of Diet Cokes and
cold Diet Cokes. He's the butler. He's the guy that gets sent out to Costco to buy heaps of Diet Coke. So, but I don't know.
I hope they're going to Costco and getting them. Yeah, it's like.
Yeah. I hope you're not buying retail Diet Coke somewhere.
No, that would be bad.
My tax dollars, man.
Right.
You better be buying.
By the way, I
think
I did read this, and I believe it to be true as a student of history, that Trump's crazy signature, that he carefully copied Charlemagne's, not the guy on the podcast, Charlemagne, the emperor of the Holy Roman Emperor. Yeah.
we know Charlemagne's signature.
Yeah, he signed lots of shit.
Oh,
Charlemagne was highly literate.
I guess I've just never looked up the signature, but
No, if you look it up, it's the same.
Mine is an amalgamation of duping notes from my parents for high school.
Oh,
I
had a business doing that. Because I'm an artist. So like I had like a whole folder, an accordion folder, and I would have my clients, my fellow students, they would steal letterhead from their parents, and I would keep it on file, and then a writing sample. And then when they needed for a specific date, they'd commission it, and then I would deliver it. And never failed, $10 each.
Failed.
Back then, that was a lot of money.
I only did mine for myself, but my signature was crafted based on forging my parents. Both my mom's was hard. My dad's was scribble, so it was very easy.
I had my mom's down to an art.
I
could always get a day off.
I couldn't do it. But I kind of learned it along the way. But it was usually my dad's signature, so that I learned. So now my signature is of scribble. You don't know what it says.
Yeah.
They're very difficult.
Well, that's sort of like at the machine when you do your credit card machine, you have to sign on it with
scribble
with your finger or like the little stylus, and you're just sort of like, nobody. It's like it's a joke, right? You're just like, ugh. And it's like it always goes through. You could just put in there like blow me, and it would go through.
Yeah, I know. It's not like it captures your real signature. It knows how you sign.
Yeah, it's not checking with anyone,
No. It is not. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for Manila Chan and Ted Rall. Please be sure to follow us, whatever platform you are watching and enjoying. I hope you're enjoying this program. Be sure to like it.
Just follow it and like it. We don't require you to like what we're saying or anything about us.
I guess that's true.
By the way, Manila, I do want to point out that on YouTube, which we are now at 403 subscribers. We've broken the 4 barrier.
Right. And we need to get, there's like, in the old days, when I was allowed to have a YouTube, Ted, they, I thought it was like once you hit 500, and that was like everything. The floodgates open, you get ads and all that. So now they have tiers. It's too complicated. That is producer Robbie world for me. It's after the old school YouTube. I'm not allowed on there anymore, so whatever. It is what it is. That's fine. They can go to hell. I'm all about the Rumble. You know this. So guys, please share it. Please share our channel if you're on Rumble. If you're not in the position.
Rumble, you want to catch up. YouTube's ahead of you.
They are, but they're 1/10 of the viewership of the world, right? I mean, like of all streaming.
This is America. Inherent disadvantage is no excuse.
Meritocracy, Rumble. At least help share the show. We'd appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Appreciate you being here, whatever platform it is that you're on. And I'm going to put our email up there, Ted. I'm going to prep for Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Send some questions.
Please record that sucker if you can. Then we can play it on the air. If you can't, we'll just read it. But
yeah,
audio. Attach an audio recording. You can do it on your phone. Really super easy.
Email questions to TMI show question singular TMI show question @yahoo.com. With that, hasta mañana, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for being here.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Ted.